Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this TA session. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be the moderator and technical support for today's webinar. Today's topic is with Juan Gonzalez, and we're just talking about the Illinois Youth Career Pathway Grant Opportunity on this technical assistant session. Just a couple of reminders as we go on through this webinar. Some technical reminders. All participants on the call are in listen-only mode, and you cannot unmute yourselves. If you have questions as the webinar proceeds, please post those in the chat or the Q&A box, and we will hold those at the end for the Q&A session with Juan. A reminder that this webinar will be recorded, and today's presentation and recording will be available on the Illinois WorkNet website within 48 hours. The slide deck is already up on the NOFO website if you would like to download that and follow along with us today. In an effort to be as accessible as possible, this webinar will be offering closed captioning as you see at the bottom of your screen. This closed captioning isn't as accurate as we would love it to be. It seems to be doing a good job right now though, but it will be completely accurate on our YouTube channel if you so need closed captioning capabilities. And then a reminder, if you have faulty internet connection or audio connection today, please feel free to call in using the phone number on your original registration email. And with that, I think that's all I have. So Juan, take it away.
Great, thank you. I think if you can get to the slides with myself or my introduction. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the agenda I'm going to be going through today. I'm going to do a little brief introduction about myself and the organization I work with, Education System Center. I'm going to do a very kind of broad overview and introduction to this state framework called the College and Career Pathways framework, but also the College and Career Pathway Endorsement. I'll kind of get into a little somewhat details of the pathway endorsement requirements, some of its key features, and some of the goals it tries to accomplish. And then I'll kind of then pivot towards like, how would I implement the College and Career Pathway Endorsement within the context of DCEO's Youth Career Pathways Notice of Funding Opportunity. So I'll give some potential opportunities for in-school eligible youth. I'll give some examples from the field that I have been seeing in partnerships or kind of districts that we've been kind of collaborating with. And then I'll end with some slides that are some helpful resources for you all. As a keynote, in this slide deck that is now posted on the DCO webpage, some of the slides actually have embedded hyperlinks. So I really welcome you to download the PowerPoint for yourself and kind of have access to those hyperlinks as well. So thank you. Next slide. So this is a brief kind of introduction to myself and my organization. At Education System Center, our goal is to strengthen education and workforce systems towards racial equity to help more young people get into productive careers in the global economy. We do this primarily through the implementation, expansion, and collaboration of college and career pathways. That includes, secondary through post-secondary pathways. We also do a lot of work in kind of a field called bridges to post-secondary. That means in the implementation of dual credit coursework, early college coursework, transitional instruction, bridge programs, things of that nature. And we do a lot of work with data impact on leadership. That means like data analysis, longitudinal data systems, or kind of institutional data improvement. We do our work statewide in collaboration with state agencies like DCEO, but also the North State Board of Education, the Community College Board. And we do a lot of work and a lot of implementation locally. So we will partner with certain regions or kind of lead cohorts of regions implementing some innovative practices and strategies. Next slide. So the College and Career Pathway Endorsement really has its origins. I think, I want to take a step back through a law passed in 2016, the Post-Secondary and Workforce Readiness Act. Well, that law had four major components. The primary one that you guys should understand is, has the implementation of career expectations and post-secondary career expectations, transitional courses, competency-based education, but principally the College and Career Pathway Endorsement on high school diplomas was a key aspect of that law. Next slide. So this slide here on your screen now shows kind of a state pathways framework and model that resulted a result of the kind of the post-secondary workforce readiness act. And what it really shows is that there was a lot of people talking about or implementing pathways with a lot of variance between them. With this slide here, we really start to see more a consolidated understanding of a pathway in kind of various state agency frameworks, right? So proper pathway and best practice should have some individualized planning, should have some career focused instruction, should obviously include some work-based learning, and it should also pay attention to other core academic subject areas, right? So like English, math, science, social science, things of that nature. And a properly created pathway will allow a young person to go from the secondary space to and through the post-secondary space, being able to earn industry credentials along the way, some degrees, and then increasing their access to semi-skilled to middle skilled and eventually advanced jobs. And the key thing is if a young person wants to be a doctor or a medical assistant, that pathway should originate in the same space for like a young person, and the student should be able to choose their off-ramp and not have it chosen for them. So that's kind of a key unique feature of pathways that we kind of implemented. Next click. As a part of this new pathway, oh, if you can go back one, as part of this new pathway framework, there's also a new feature that's called a college and career pathway endorsement. So what the state created was a way to recognize a young person's completion or progression in a pathway at the completion of high school. The college and career pathway endorsement, next slide, is something that actually can exist on a young high school student's diploma. Similar to in high school would be like a seal of biliteracy, or like in college, like a college major or minor, right? So the college career pathway appears on their transcript and a diploma, and it's issued by the graduating high school or district. Next click, one click only. So how this applies to kind of the youth career pathway space is that, you should really be thinking about the college and career pathway endorsement as something that's obviously tailored for high school students. It's something that would be eligible for WIOA eligible in-school youth, and primarily and principally for like high school seniors. Next page. One thing that you should know about is that the pathway endorsement, just like the DCEO's notice of funding opportunity, coincides with these 7 endorsement areas or kind of industry sectors: finance and business, health, science and technology, human and public services, so on and so forth. Obviously, these 7 broad areas, are very kind of expansive, but there's subcategories within them that if you wanted to implement locally for your pathway, that's obviously makes sense. So for example, in information technology, you could do cybersecurity or computer programming. In health sciences, there can be like a subcategory of nursing or, biotechnical science or so on and so forth, right? So obviously each of these categories has further subcategories and can be more specific. Next page. With the Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act, there's a resource for you that kind of has been very helpful, and as you're thinking about implementing college and career pathways, and that there is a kind of a document called the Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act, the recommended technical and essential employability competencies. What we've created in coordination with some of our other partners is for each industry sector or each endorsement area, there's a set of competencies that a student should be able to display or complete by the time they graduate high school. And you'll see in this document, there's a set of competencies for each endorsement area and also generally for their employability or soft skills. Each of these competencies will reflect that the student is now capable of entering into an entry-level employment, but also or entry into like post-secondary education in that industry sector. Next slide. This is also displaying also the general employability competencies embedded in this document. And the idea is that every student who graduates with the college and career pathway endorsement should be displaying both the essential employability competencies and the technical competencies for their endorsement area. Next slide. Now, if you want to know how broad the breadth of kind of implementation statewide, we estimate at Education System Center, there's around 70 school districts representing 107 high schools implementing the pathway endorsement in some stage. We estimate that that's around 16% of Illinois high schools out of about 650 high schools in the state. And they're pretty spread out from urban, suburban, and rural. space. We invite you to kind of, if you want to have more details about their local implementation from, starting from ground zero to kind of more robust pathway districts, we invite you to check out our podcast with several pathway highlights. And, we're obviously available on like Apple and Spotify. So for those of you who want to kind of just listen to something in the background to get a better feel for the pathway endorsement implementation. Next slide. So this slide here is the component parts and requirements of the pathway endorsement. This is what it would take for a student to graduate high school and earn the pathway endorsement. What would normally happen is a high school district would be authorized by ISB to grant the endorsement to students should they meet all these requirements, and the high school would then kind of track which student met these requirements and would place the endorsement on the student's high school transcript and diploma. Some key things I want to highlight, as we mentioned before, the component parts here parallel what we think are the best practice implementation of a pathway endorsement, right? There's requirements around students' individual planning and preparation for secondary and post-secondary. There's requirements around professional learning, or otherwise known as work-based learning. There's requirements around career-focused instructional sequence, meaning like the multiple years of coursework that a student must do to earn the endorsement. And then there's requirements around academic readiness, meaning the student must kind of be ready for post-secondary employment or curriculum or academics as a result of the endorsement. I do want to highlight certain things, which in the professional learning space, you'll see that the requirements for work-based learning for the endorsement include very numeric and very specific requirements around like career exploration activities, internship hours, or what's known as a career development experience, and also this new kind of subject of a team-based challenge, which is like project-based learning and kind of activities as such. There was another technical assistance session with my colleague Heather Penzak that I invite you out to be a part of or kind of download, which talks more about the career development experience and best practices there. And we have a lot of resources for you if you're interested in that. In regards to the career focused instructional sequence, you'll see here that the requirement is that the student must complete at least 2 years of coursework or equivalent competencies, and that coursework must build towards an industry credential or a post-secondary credential with labor market value. A unique feature of the pathway endorsement now is that there's also a requirement that the student must earn early college credit as a part of the endorsement, right? Specifically, they must earn 6 hours of early college credit. That early college credit can be AP, but also can be dual credit courses in the career-focused career and technical education space. And then in terms of the academic readiness requirements, next click as well. In terms of the academic readiness requirements, the things that we want to highlight is the student must graduate high school ready for post-secondary academics, right? So that means that they must graduate high school with college readiness in English and college placement in English and college readiness in math and college placement in math. Now, what that means is that they could obviously take like a dual credit course or an AP course to display that readiness. They can have a certain score on their SAT. But given that we're working with a population in this pathway or in this grant opportunity of WIOA eligible youth who might have other challenges and barriers, one of the recommendations we would have here is that your high school be implementing some sort of transitional math and potentially over time transitional English coursework as well. Next click. Now, the benefits of the college and career pathway endorsement are really kind of summarized by these 3 Venn diagram of circles, right? Essentially, what the college and career pathway endorsement is trying to do, like many of the youth career pathways in our state, are trying to get students accelerated to a certain career area. We want them to have, going to college or trying to sign up for an industry credential at a private sector institution is an expensive career exploration tool. So we want them to kind of become aware what are the career opportunities and start accelerating by earning college credit or earning industry credentials before they even graduate high school. The endorsement seeks to have students ready for post-secondary education. Yes, we want them able to start working. That's one thing. But in the jobs of the future, there's going to be so many requirements or additional requirements for post-secondary education. And we want students to be ready to work and go to college simultaneously necessary. And also, obviously, like many of the other youth career pathways or kind of program implementers, we want students to have a certain set of foundational skills or soft skills, employability skills that can help them in all their potential careers. Next slide. The college career pathway endorsement is somewhat similar to existing CTE, career technical education programs. It's similar to a lot of, we all already problems with some subtle differences. And I think I want to highlight those here, right? So in the past, in a typical high school, we might have CTE courses and programs of study. There's a lot of focus in those high school space on the industry credential and the attainment of an industry credential. The pathway endorsement does that and then adds kind of some other elements where courses that students can take along a pathway are not restricted or not limited by CTE funded courses. An example of this could be, if a student took like computer science or a course in AP computer science or something of that nature, sometimes in some high schools that's not typically CTE funded, but in this case, that would be a reasonable course along a pathway and should count towards the requirements of the pathway endorsement, right? The other kind of unique feature of the endorsement is that there's now a focus on career focused early college courses as something a student must complete. I'll get into a little more detail of the career focused early college courses that you can be implementing in the pathway endorsement because there's some flexibility there. In terms of work-based learning, a lot of high schools were doing already job shadows, site visits, things of that nature, internship placements. The pathway endorsement kind of very quantifies what are the work-based learning activities that have to happen, career exploration, team-based challenges, and career development experience, or also known as an internship. And it kind of categorizes how the minimum requirements or the minimum number of hours one must do to have a robust work-based learning experience. And lastly, been many CT programs in the past or many opportunities, kind of the transition to a post-secondary institution was somewhat of an afterthought. The college career pathway endorsement really kind of has that central to a student's career plan, right? The student must create a plan to transition through high school to post-secondary and or also be able to start employment. And it also really focuses on like when a student transitions to a post-secondary institution, are they placing into college level coursework for math and English and are not falling into remedial coursework, which research has shown if a student starts going into remedial coursework for math and English, they are less likely to complete a degree or complete a credential. Next slide. Now, I want to kind of give some context and background of kind of within this grant process in the past and how high school districts have been kind of have used these funds. So in 2017, Peoria Public Schools applied for and received grants under Youth Career Pathways opportunity, and this is the amount of funds they received. And on your screen is kind of what they use those funds for. They use those funds for about 25 WIO eligible students, and they kind of get them prepared for occupations in the construction sector, right? Now, I'm not saying that you should be limiting yourself to this grant amount or these activities, but I'm just giving you an example that there is precedent for high school districts receiving funds under DCEO's grant and kind of how that there's some flexibility in implementation as well. Next slide. So when thinking about kind of implementing the pathway endorsement, we really got to think about it like, how does that overlap with WIOA in school youth, right? So, these are kind of the typical requirements I'm basing this on the 2017-2018 grant. These are the typical requirements of a WIO in school youth. So what I would say that this grant opportunity, there's a unique chance for you all to kind of think about like, are you implementing career and technical education programs? Are you already implementing some sort of pathway program? And do you want to recruit more disadvantaged or WIO in school eligible youth into that pathway? And could you be applying for funds to kind of support them or give them additional supports in order to succeed, right? And I think this is the unique opportunity to bring equity and opportunity to some of the most kind of struggling youth in our communities and give them a chance to kind of align with a pathway framework that is very advanced, very robust, and in line with national best practices. Next slide. So I want to give everyone some examples. One of the barriers that you might be kind of thinking about or facing in implementing the college and career pathway endorsement and you're with WIO eligible youth. So some things to think about, right? You have to get a student 6 hours of early college credit. Now, these are some of my recommendations on the screen of how you can be doing that and how it would be kind of an easier lift for you to do, right? So you should be targeting on the top left-hand side target career-focused dual credit with easy student eligibility, right? Many community colleges have some courses that don't have a prerequisite of college level English or college level math, and any student, maybe whether they be a junior and senior, can sign up to take that course, and you can partner with that college either for dual credit or dual enrollment for students to take that course. Some common examples of that are like an introduction to construction course or a medical terminology course. Typically, each of those courses is around 3 credit hours. Another kind of suggestion I have for the implementation of the pathway endorsement for this target population would be to kind of target industry credentials that are already offered with your community college. What we are finding, basic reading is defined as kind of based on your community college's entrance exam. Yeah. So for example, it's also like there's a parallel for with an SAT exam, but community colleges are evolving their basic reading requirements to include multiple measures, right? So a student can have a certain GPA, a certain attendance rate, or have passed a prior English course, and that can place them into college level English and math. But my suggestion is, though, that you're kind of avoiding the higher level placement courses and choosing courses that are more accessible. Coming back to this notion of targeting courses with industry credentials already at community colleges, what I'm seeing in the field is that there's a lot of high school districts that sometimes contract with a third-party entity or a private sector entity to get students industry credentials. That might be as like a certified nursing assistant or a NIMS credential. If you have the opportunity to partner with your community college where they are offering a course that also leads to an equal or greater industry credential, we highly recommend you involve that as a part of your pathway implementation, right? So the examples I gave are in certified nursing assistant, sometimes in medical assistant, and then in manufacturing processes, some of those courses in our own introduction to manufacturing come with MSSC or NIMS credentials that students can earn as a part of the course. So those are some great recommendations that we're all having you think about. How could you be implementing these, right? Well, some bottom left corner of the screen is integrating dual credit courses into your existing CTE structures. What we have found is that there are a lot of students who are already taking or a part of a CTE program, a CTE structure. How can you have your existing CTE courses align with your community college for dual credit or dual enrollment so that student can earn CTE credit as well as dual credit courses? Some examples of this that I'm seeing implemented in some places such as like North Chicago High School is like an introduction to a medical technician, right? That's a senior level course that the students are able to take at their career center. It's 6 credit hours, and they come out with the kind of basic industry credential for that field that meets the requirements in the endorsement and springboards them into a career as an EMT or paramedic. There's other courses also in manufacturing that kind of integrate with existing CT courses like machine shop or machine shop technology, and also get you some dual credit as well. And my final recommendation is for students that you might be targeting kind of to recruit into this pathway endorsement framework, target some courses as well that have multiple application to multiple industry sectors, right? There's some courses such as, there's a course common in community colleges called Computer Applications for Business. That course is applicable to like a pathway in business, IT, but also sometimes health sciences, as the health science space is much more technological and much more computer based as well. That has a lot of applicability. And then there's also courses like blueprint reading, right? Which would be applicable to anyone pursuing a pathway in manufacturing, construction, architecture, things of that nature. So these are some ideas that we have. If you ever kind of feel like you were stuck or having trouble implementing early college coursework as a part of this pathway for your students you're targeting, you should definitely reach out to us at Education System Center. We're always willing to help. We're always kind of willing to help you negotiate or facilitate conversations with yourself and your community college and make that easier for you as well. Next slide, please. So I want to also give some examples of embedding work-based learning opportunities in the pathway for kind of the target population of youth, right? So if you really think about this, if a student was already doing a CT program or a pathway program at their local high school, they would already be doing as a part of that process some career exploration in the orientation level courses on the left hand side, right? In the orientation level courses, they'd be able to do site visits, job shadows, things of that nature, right? What we recommend in skill development phases is that you embed in your coursework in the sophomore and junior year, or maybe the more advanced skill development courses, some of the requirements of the professional learning of the endorsement, specifically the team-based challenges. And you can do this having students participate in career and technical student organizations, welding competitions, or things of that nature. And then really what we really think about is like for the capstone course or the senior year course, how can you embed some of those courses or kind of target some courses that already have early college credit, as well as kind of a work-based learning, career development experience, right? Some classical examples of this include like CNA courses, where there's a clinical requirement for hours of courses, but also some manufacturing apprenticeship programs and things of that nature, where students getting college credit on and also work-based learning placement. So our recommendations here is that as you think about targeting, high school youth as a part of this pathway, as a part of the pathway endorsement, and for this grant opportunity, think about how the funds can be used not only for the wraparound supports of students, but how some of the funds could be used to implement whatever you might be missing that would have a student earn the college and career pathway endorsement, right? So let's say you already have a robust CTE program, but you want to have student earn more early college credit. How can you use some of these funds for the wraparound supports for students, but also getting them access to and support so they can pass some of the early college credit, dual credit courses that are required as a pathway endorsement. Maybe you already have the early college credit locked up. Maybe you need more support to get them some of the requirements of work-based learning opportunities, using funds in that manner to kind of bridge them over the gap, over the final barriers, and getting these students a very robust kind of pathway experience while in high school. Next slide. Some resources for you all that we want to, as I mentioned before, you can always think of ourselves as Education System Center as a key resource for you all. You should obviously check out this website here on the screen, the Post-Secondary Workforce Readiness Act webpage, pwract.org. You should feel free to email me with additional questions, concerns, how it could fit in, and things of that nature. And I can always provide more examples of kind of districts implementing across the state. Next slide. I also want to provide this resource, which is the Career Pathways Dictionary. It has definitions of dual credit, some of the work-based learning opportunities. What do we mean by a team-based challenge? What do we mean by a career development experience? That's all embedded in this dictionary, and it's a very helpful resource as well. And then once again, thank you for all your help. Thank you for all your kind of interest in the college career pathway endorsement. I hope it becomes an accessible and integral part of your kind of in-school target populations plan. I'm going to look at the chat box here for some final questions. It looks like all the questions are regarding to the slides and things of that nature. And I didn't answer your question, Nia, about basic reading. But if there's any other additional questions or Q&A, I'll take some time to kind of take those now as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Juan. While we're giving everyone a second to type any questions in the chat or anything, I just want to reiterate that this session was recorded and the presentation and recording will be up on the Illinois WorkNet NOFO website. The website that Tara is putting in the chat should house this slide deck already. I double checked it last night and it was up there. It's a PDF right next to the name of the presentation. So look for it there. And then the recording will also be up, linked to it within 48 hours as well. So you can refer back to this recording if you need to for any reason. I don't see any Q&A coming through or any questions in the chat. Nia, if you still can't find the deck, it might just take 48 hours for it to populate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just go to the 2021 Youth NOFO and it'll be posted there. Juan also asks for your email, so he can directly send it to you as well. And if anyone has missed any of the other technical assistance sessions, please look at that website, get familiar with it. The NOFO's listed there. All of the required documents are also listed there under NOFO material. And we have the sessions recorded, the slideshows and everything are saved there. So that should be your one-stop shop for all information regarding this funding opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much, Tara. And thank you to you as well, Juan, for this presentation today. I don't see any other questions coming through. So again, this was recorded. Please refer to it at your leisure. And with that, we'll end for today. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will see you on the next technical assistance session.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Juan. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.